Let's go!
What's up? All right, what is up, man? Welcome to the You Suck Podcast, episode 0. My name is Chris Martinez, and dude, I'm super excited to have you, man. So, if you don't mind, before we get started, let's crack open this beer. I'm drinking on a St. Arnold Art Car IPA, along with my. This is from Eighth Wonder Brewery. This mug here, it's got my Bun B mug here. I don't know if you can see that or not. If you're listening in, if you can't see it, man, it's a pretty cool little Bun B mug. So go ahead and, man, this is, this podcast, this is episode 0. This podcast, really just, hold on a second. Oh yeah, let me get that in there real quick. Really, man, just gonna unedited, raw, really, man, this one's just gonna kind of just share with you who Chris Martinez is, what this podcast is all about. If you're watching on YouTube, welcome. If you're on the podcast listening in your car, welcome. Don't crack open a beer if you're driving. I gotta tell you that, I'm sorry. But do not crack open a beer while you're driving. Hey, if you're listening to this at home, crack open a beer with me. Let's drink a beer together. If you're watching on YouTube, salud. If you're on the podcast, I'm going to try my hardest not to take sips in the microphone. There we go. So, yeah, man, episode 0. Really just want to share with you what this podcast is going to be about, who Chris Martinez is, why the name. I mean, I'm going to talk about why the name. I've been getting a lot of, and I say a lot, like, dude, a lot of people are like, dude, that's a horrible name. Don't go with that name. If you want people to watch, or listen in, you need to go with a better name. Instead of like You Suck, why don't you go with something like It's You, Not Life, or something like that. And I was just like, so I'm going to explain the name. The name has significance to me, but I want to explain it. So first of all, who's Chris Martinez, man? Why am I so passionate about this? I think that you're going to need to understand some things about Chris Martinez, and who better to tell you about it than Chris Martinez? And no, I'm not going to talk about myself in the third person. I'm not that dude. So, I'm just going to jump right into this. So let's hop right in. Some of you that may have heard the elevator pitch. I'm not going to do the elevator pitch this time. I'm going to share the elevator pitch, but I want to go in deep detail. The elevator pitch is simply, my mom was a crack addict. My dad was a heroin addict. At 2 years old, I was placed in foster care. By 11 years old, I lived with 13 different families. I've been rejected, abused, and tossed to the side. I've been through it all. Something along those lines, right? It goes a little bit deeper than that, but that's the gist of it. So I'm going to share the details of it because I think once you hear the story, you'll understand why I'm so passionate about this and this topic of You Suck and this topic of being a better person and waking up better tomorrow than I am today. And being strategic about that and being intentional really is the word I should be using. That's the one that my wife uses. But being intentional about it. And, oh yeah, that's a good one. That's a good, it's like a West Coast IPA. It's pretty good. I was born in 1983, crack hit the streets in 1985, and you could pretty much say it was game over. I don't know all the details of it. I've known my mom my whole life. I've seen pictures of my mom before I was born, and I'm the youngest out of 5 brothers on my mom that I know of. I'll share with that. I have other brothers that I've never met before, and sisters that I've never met, and a whole family I've never met. But I'm the youngest out of 5 brothers that my mom had, and I saw pictures of my mom before, and they looked like they were a pretty happy family, and it looked like it started right when I was about born. And then it probably got worse right around when I was about 2 years old. And I think that's when crack hit the streets, 1985. CPS came and took me, and I was put into a foster care program. This foster care program is a little bit different than most foster care programs, as this was a Christian-ran program. But I think part of the thing about this Christian program, from what I heard, was the parent had to qualify for the kid to be in the program. So you had to meet certain milestones of, sobriety and, certain things like that. And my mom couldn't reach some of the milestones. So I was removed from that foster care program and put back into a state program. Well, no, that's not true. But they were looking at that. And the rest of my brothers were, except for the oldest brother, because he had his own dad. So there's 5 kids with 3 different dads, and 3 of the middle brothers had their dad. The oldest had his dad, and then me, the youngest, have my dad. So, I guess he lived with his dad. I'm not quite sure the whole story on that. But instead of the boys' home where my brothers were living heard, man, we're going to have to split this family up because y'all don't take, the boys' home only took 5 years old and older. I was 4 years old. So the foster care was going to have to, split me up from my family because it was either like, hey, man, we can't, his mom doesn't qualify for the program. We're going to have to put him into a state foster program because he doesn't qualify to go into the boys' home either. And the boys' home made an exception, which was really cool. The boys' home said, hey, you know what? All of his brothers are here. And they made an exception, and I've only known this exception to be made one other time, and me being the first time, where they said, hey, we're making this exception. He does not need to be 5 years old. He can be 4 years old. And I went into that boys' home at 4 years old, and I lived at that boys' home from 4 years old to about 11 years old. And I lived with, in that time frame, I lived with 11 different sets of families there. And I'm not going to get into the details of all that. But from there, I moved in. That's where I met my forever home, the Smiths. And but while I was there, this is a story that, man, it kind of, I'm trying to write a book right now. I'm doing these podcasts now. And I have a kid, I have a son that's going through everything that I went through. I'm now living through his eyes, right? So I'm having to kind of relive all these things, especially if I'm writing this book. I'm trying to go through the timeline, and I'm like, I'm in first grade. That's the first time my mom came to the boys' home, and she actually took us out of the boys' home. She felt like she was good enough to, well enough to, not good, I shouldn't say good enough, but she thought she was well enough to take us out. And I was in first grade at this time. And she came and got us. And I remember, dude, she came and got us. And I never saw my mom. Like literally, I probably saw her a handful of times I was there. The neighbors, which was a group of dudes, had to watch me. I mean, they would come over and they would feed me. My brothers were older, so they were doing, and most of the time doing their, because there was quite a bit of a gap between me and my brothers. So they're doing their own thing all the time, and I remember, dude, being in first grade, and there was a neighbor kid. I think he was probably, in third grade, and he had chewing tobacco. And dude, we used to skip school all the time. And I remember he had this chewing tobacco, and it's the first time I ever had tobacco. And I think about that because my boy right now is in first grade. He's 6 years old. And I'm like, dude, I can't imagine some kid offering my boy tobacco, and my boy trying it. You know what I mean? And that was what I did. And of course, I threw it up, and I was like, I'm never going to try this again. And but I remember that, and and I remember my mom never being there, and I remember CPS. Well, I don't think it was CPS, but it was the boys' home. Some months later, because we weren't going to school. I think we were skipping school every single day. So the boys' home comes and picks us up one day, and they're like, "Hey, we're gonna take y'all back for a visit." Hey, you're gonna be able to visit your friends. And they're like, "All right, cool." And we get there, and I remember all right, it's time to go, right? And they're like, "No, you're not going. You're staying." And I remember, dude, that happened a few different times. My mom would come and get us. She thought she was well enough, and then we would have to go back. And sometimes my mom, there was a time where I think my mom did, or my uncle actually took us back, and then a couple times where they came and got us, and it was brutal in there. Man, not brutal in there. I shouldn't say it was a really good place, but it was brutal. Why, wondering, like, where's my mom? You know what I mean? Like, dude, why doesn't my mom want to see me? Because my mom would do some things like, we had home visits, so your mom could come and take you. And my mom would do things like, hey, I'm on my way. I'll be there in a couple hours. And, 2-3 hours goes by, and she would call and say, hey, I'm about an hour away. And then another hour or two go by, and hey, I'm about 30 minutes away. And then, another hour goes by. I'm about 15. I'm right around the corner. And you got your bag in hand ready to go. And she never just showed up, right? And then, maybe she called that night, or maybe the next few days, like, oh, I had a flat tire. Sorry, we had to turn around. And you're like, and you're a kid, you're 6, 7, 8 years old. So you're like, yeah, my mom had a flat tire. And everybody's just like, oh, man, this poor kid. And eventually you kind of realize, like, oh, yeah, she's not going to show up. And dude, that really messed with me. That rejection, you know what I mean? Because it wasn't the first time I've been rejected by her, and it wouldn't be the last time, right? And I talk about these things, guys, because I want you to understand, like, man, I'm not coming at this podcast from a sense of, man, I have life figured out. I'm not coming at this from a sense of, man, life's perfect for me. I'm coming at this in a sense of, man, I have a lot of baggage in my life that I'm dealing with today. I'm married. I'm a husband. I'm a father. I'm a businessman, and there's a lot of baggage in there, right? In this boys' home, I never got like molested by people that were like older guys trying to help me, I always had what they call like sponsors, and these would be older gentlemen that were usually successful businessmen. And dude, people were always great. It was always like kids in the boys' home. So I had to deal with that baggage, you know what I mean? Because dude, that was something that I buried deep inside, man, that's something no one can ever find out about. And as I started trying to unravel a lot of this baggage, that was one of the things I had to deal with, right? And about 8 years old, I meet. We go from cottage to cottage, right? So I call them cottages, but they're really houses, families, right? So I was telling you how I lived with about 10 different families while I was there. Well, I happened to live with this one family, and they put something out, because you're supposed to be going home 2 times a month at this particular time. Like, your mom and dad should be coming getting you and spending some time with you. And there was a few kids where, man, our parents never came and got us. It's like mom and dad weren't there. Christmas, nobody. Thanksgiving, nothing. Birthdays, no phone calls. So they put out something in the church paper saying, or the bulletin. Excuse me. They put out something saying, hey, we need sponsors. We need somebody to come in and watch these kids, for home visits. Come spend some time with them. And, man, I went through quite a bit of those, man. I went through a lot of those. And some people would just say, man, I'm not cut out for this. Some people would just say, man, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. Some people, and they were just too busy in life. They were just like, I travel too much for this. And by the time I met Gary and Marge Smith, I had been through a number of these already. So I met Gary and Marge Smith. I was about 8 years old. And my brothers just left boys country. Mind you, like, me and my brothers have different dads. So their dad came and got them from boys country, but he wasn't able to come get me. So now I'm alone, all by myself in boys country. I just meet Gary and Marge, and I have a horrible attitude. Like, man, screw you, screw boys country, screw everything, screw the world. My brothers just left. I'm going to be here forever. That's it. There's no way I'm never going to have a family. And I meet Gary and Marge that day, and horrible attitude. And man, my name is Christopher Michael Martinez. Christopher Michael Martinez is my full name. Well, they had a son named Chris, and they had a son named Mike. And they really just I'm going to say it, they fell in love with me. They fell in love with me right away. And man, I was like a jerk to them at the first couple weeks. But then I started to love them because, man, they provided that family element for me. Gary became that father figure for me. Marge became that mother figure. And then their kids became like brothers and sisters to me. And that's something that I never had. And I remember just holding on to that and thriving for it. And eventually they adopted me, or I wouldn't say they adopted me. They took legal custody. And let me share with you how this happened, because this is a pretty cool story. But, my mom never came and got me. And these people would come and get me. They would visit me, and I got in trouble one time. It was home visit, and I got in some trouble. I got into a fight, and then I lied about it. Well, everybody saw the fight, so it was like, well, you shouldn't have lied about it because everyone already saw it. And then you were fighting, so you're fighting and you lied about it. So they said you can't go on home visit, and I remember just losing it. And I remember even my house parents telling like the directors, they're like, hey, you got to let him go. Like, you don't understand. He never gets to go on home visits. So they said, okay, hey, we'll let him go. It was like a 2-week vacation, but we're going to cut it in half. So instead of doing the whole spring break, he can only go half the spring break. And it was kind of like a barter almost. Like we made a little agreement. And I remember coming back, and I remember coming back so upset. Like, I wanted to stay that 2 weeks. So I remember calling my mom, and I said, hey, I want to get out of this place, and I'm ready to come home. And she was like, my mom's a Mexican lady, Spanish lady. She would speak Spanish to me, and she would say things like, okay, mijo, and nothing would ever come of it. And I remember talking with the Smiths one time, and I remember just saying, I want to come live with y'all. And they said, is that what you would really want? And I said, yeah, I want to come live with y'all, and I want y'all to be my family. And they said, we would like that. And I remember, it's like it's crazy, because they had been thinking about this. They've been praying about it. And the next thing you know, the ball is rolling. And I remember talking to my mom about it. My mom wasn't too happy about it at first. And I remember just saying to my mom, like, you know what? If this doesn't happen, I'm running away. Like, I'm running away from this place. Like, you're not coming to get me. My brothers are gone. I don't have anybody here. I'm running away if you don't come and get me. And, my mom agreed. She said, hey, look, I'm not going to allow them to adopt you. Because in my mom's head, as a drug addict, she thought, I'm going to get better. And I'm going to get better one day, mijo. I'm going to get better one day, mijo. I'm going to get better. I'm going to come get you. And at this point, I'm just like, yeah, fine, whatever, And so she never allowed them to legally adopt me, but she allowed them to have full legal custody over me. So in other words, like, she still had to say what happened in my life. It was almost like a divorce. She even had visitation rights. So it wasn't a full-on adoption, and it was probably one of the worst things that could happen, because the Smiths didn't have a 100% say what happened in my life. So my mom still had a say. So my mom, hey, he's still coming over every other weekend, kind of a thing. And man, that wasn't good a lot of those times, because my mom was still a crack addict. And dude, most of the time I'm there's no adult supervision, like none. And I'm drinking, smoking, partying. You name it. I'm doing it. I'm trying. If I'm not doing it, I'm trying to do it. Because my brothers, they were a little bit more strict. They let me get away with a lot of things, but I'm the youngest brother. So they were a little bit more strict. So I'm trying to rebel against everybody at this point, including Gary and Marge. And Gary and Marge were the nicest people, but I always say this, they loved me so well, they just didn't have the tools to take care of someone like me, and most people don't. Like, how do you take care of someone, that brings drugs into your home and just straight up says, what are you going to do about it, And you love them so much that you just know, like, hey, because that was one of the things, like, in my head, I'm like, y'all are going to get rid of me one day anyway, And they never did get rid of me. And I think about that till this day, because I know there was times where, they had the talks, like, what are we going to do with this kid? Like, he's not our kid. He's not our responsibility. Like, let's get rid of this kid. And they may not have been that drastic, but I guarantee you that would have been what was going on in my head. And they never did though. And but the damage was done in my life as far as the, like the abandonment, the rejection, the, not being able to trust anyone with my heart. You're just going to break it. So the first thing you do when you get in that position is you start to rebel. You almost start to create the problem before it even happens. And this is, I'm going to say this because I see this happening into a lot of people's lives right now where, like, dude, you're better than that, but yet you're creating the problem in anticipation of it already happening because you're so used to it. And we're going to talk this podcast. I'm going to get deeper into that in another episode, not in this one, but I'm going to bring somebody on that, man, he goes deep into this stuff, and I'm going to bring him on and talk about it. So man, I move in with Gary and Marge, and dude, I mean, I'm 13 and I'm already smoking weed, 16 already smoking weed, drinking 40 ounces, going to punk rock shows, just, dude, living the life, man, like as far as I was concerned. And, that lifestyle, like, I started at such a young, I mean, dude, I still drink today. You know what I mean? And we're going to talk about this too, guys, because I know there's a lot of my people that are watching, like, I can't believe he drinks. Like, after all that stuff he's been through, like, he still drinks. And I thought he was a drug addict. He still drinks. And, hey, I'm going to crack open another one here in a second. So cheers. Now, but we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about, the vices, because, I'm still not perfect in my life, and I'm never going to be perfect. And I'm not going to use that as an excuse, but man, I'm 16 years old, drinking out of a 40-ounce bottle. Back in those days, even at 16, dude, they had 64-ounce bottles. I don't know if y'all remember these bottles or not, dude, but these things are huge, and they had a little like a thumb where you put your thumb in it, man. And I'm going to tell you like this, a 40-ounce would go hot in about 15, 20 minutes, man. So I just remember drinking a 40-ounce to look cool. I don't ever remember drinking a 40. I mean, every time somebody bought me a 40, I remember thinking in my head, like, oh, man. Like, oh, shoot, here we go. That stuff's filtered through charcoal, man. That stuff ain't no good, man. So, but shout out to all you 40-ounce drinkers out there. But I mean, I was drinking at an early age, man. So I turned 18. Okay, let's talk about this real quick because I got a job while I was working with Gary and Marge. I was in 11th grade, got a job at the airport right here at this local airport, a little bitty airport, not the big airport, a little bitty. And I was washing airplanes, and I was working for $5 an hour. And the owners there were trying to take advantage of me, man, because people were coming in saying, hey, will you wash my airplane, on the side? And I'd be like, yeah, I'll come over there and wash your airplane. And the owners were getting mad at me. They're like, hey, you can't be washing airplanes on the side. And I was like, y'all own a flying school. Y'all don't really own a plane washing. Like, I'm not in competition with you. But she was like, yeah, but she was almost like, I own you and you need to. And I was like, oh. So I remember telling somebody about it, and they're like, they can't do that to you. You can wash airplanes on the side. Because one of the pilots was like, hey, can you wash my airplane? I was like, no, they won't let me. Like, they won't let you. So anyway, I ended up working for the mechanic, because the mechanic was like, hey, dude, come over here and work for us. You can still get your airplane's license. And I share this story with you because, I was going to become an airplane pilot. I got my 40 hours of flight time. I did everything I needed to do to become a pilot, and I couldn't get clean. Like, I did the ground school. Like, I couldn't pass the physical. And I remember, and a lot of it, I remember years after that blaming 9/11. It was like, well, the reason I'm not a pilot today is because, no one was hiring pilots around that time because 9/11 happened. And, I just stopped becoming a pilot. But the truth of the matter is way before 9/11 even happened, I had the opportunity to become a pilot. And I couldn't do it because I couldn't get clean. And at this particular time, man, like, I just kind of considered myself like a drug addict because, dude, we were just doing anything and everything we could. Like, there was sometimes, like, I didn't even know what I was doing. And then later find out, like, dude, you just sniffed like a speedball. You know, and you're like, oh, dude, no wonder my heart's going a million miles an hour. You know, so I'm 18 years old, and when I was 11th grade, going on to 12th grade, turning 18 years old, and I remember turning 18, still not graduated from high school, and I remember getting in trouble for bringing weed in the house and alcohol in the house. And I remember being like, dude, I'm almost 18 years old, and I wasn't 18 yet. I'm almost 18 years old. I should be able to do what I want to do. And they're like, not in our house. You can't be bringing in illegal substances and drinking alcohol. No, and drinking and driving. Come on. And I was like, okay. So I turned 18 February 4th, and I was kind of like, I'll show you. You know, I'll turn 18. February like 23rd, I was moved out. And my best friend, he just graduated, and he was moving out, and he was like, why don't you come move in with me? And I sold my drum set, and he was like, rent's $280 a month. And I was like, dude, I can come up with $280 a month. And so I remember that was when it really started for me in my, like, because, dude, every night was a party night for us, dude. Like, there was no holding back. I'm talking cocaine, X. So at this point, you didn't know what your X was made of, because most of these X pills were all speed-based. And we're chopping them all up, sniffing them, taking them every 3-4 times a day. I'm calling into work 3-4 times a day. Hey, my stomach hurts again. I'm not coming in today. And just as long as I made that $280 a month for rent, and then of course you made more money. And man, that's really when my situation started with me. And just my whole drug addiction, I would say, of I don't even care what it is. Like, I just want to do it. And the only two things I would never do would be crack or meth. And those are the two things. Like, anything else, now, I'll do some heroin, but I don't know if I would necessarily stick it in my arm. You know what I mean? Like, I'll smoke it, sniff it, do whatever I have to do. But I'm not, so I went there for a long time, man, of just, what do you got? What do you got? I'll do it. What do you got? I'll do it. What do you got? I'll do it. And that lasted for a few years, 18, 19, 20 years old. And around that time, moved to Austin, Texas, and went from a little bit of a shift. It went from more of a drug consumer to a drug producer, to more from a drug user to drug seller, and started off with just selling weed. And really quickly got into cocaine and meth. And dude, I met this old man in Austin that he was buying, he was buying 3-4 ounces from me a week, and I would buy an ounce for $600 and sell it to him for $1,200. And I remember I was a window cleaner at this time, dude, making money, dude. I was making like $200 a day at minimum, $1,000, $1,000 paychecks, working at this window cleaning company. And that's why I knew that there was so much money in window cleaning, because of this company that I was working for. So I'm making $1,000 a week. Ended up starting my own window cleaning company, and dude, that took off pretty quickly. Like, we started making $600 a day pretty quickly, like $12,000 a month pretty quickly, and that was pretty good for someone whose bills were less than $1,000 a month at the time. But man, I was making so much money slinging dope and selling meth that I remember even waking up to jobs, like I had like a $1,000 day, and you'd wake up and be like, why am I going to work today, dude? I'm going to make $1,000 this week just sleeping. Why am I going to go into work today? And then customers be calling like, dude, where are you at? You going to come wash my windows or not? And you'd be like, man, I may or may not show up tomorrow. And I became that guy, to where the customer's like, no call, no show. And I'm like, screw you, dude. I'm making money, And dude, it got to a point where, we went from selling weed to selling meth to selling coke. So eventually, man, I kind of got out of that to just growing weed. And I got a friend of mine, my roommate at the time, his friend was getting out of prison, and he came and crashed on our couch. And man, this dude could grow some weed, man. Like, that was his niche. He was like a mathematician, and he was a green thumb, and like a cross between an electrician and a green thumb. And Dude, he got us hooked up into growing some weed, and I remember helping him start this grow house. Dude, this was a whole house, 3-bedroom house. Every room was occupied. You had a room for mother plants, and then a room for vegging, and then a room for harvesting. And I mean, dude, it was legit, So me and I know he ain't gonna mind me saying it. Me and my cousin, because he's doing good right now. What's up, cuz? So me and my cousin decided, hey man, we can do this too. So we took a house. We started renting a house. We took a house, and dude, we started growing weed in this house, and I mean, I think we did pretty good, man. I mean, at the end of it all, like we had plans to go and like I don't remember. It was some acreage. Like, man, we're gonna go get this house on some land, and we about to do it up. Like, we're about to go from making this $20,000 every harvest to $40, $50, $60,000 every harvest. And right around that time, a lot of things were going on, and I had this sense like, man, we're about to get busted. There's a lot of things happening at this time for us to believe this. And I remember us talking about like, hey man, like we probably need to chop all this crap down. But check it out. So before, what we've already seen this happen before though, to where the guy that was helping us ended up chopping everything down because his friend was like, hey man, I snitched you out, and it's like, so we helped. I mean, dude, we went in there and chopped everything down, and then the friend was like, oh yeah, man, but nothing's gonna happen, I guess, it's no big deal, and nothing ended up happening, right? So we were kind of like, dude, if we chop everything down, nothing's gonna happen. If we keep it, something's gonna happen. Like, we're gonna gamble. Let's keep it. And sure enough, dude, we keep it. And I mean, dude, I kid you not, man. It was like I think we're just too paranoid. But I remember even telling my cousin, like, hey, dude, is there somebody across the street right now, like with the camera recording us? And he'd be like, dude, it totally looks like it is, right? And I remember even somebody stopping by, taking pictures of the house one day, and I'm like, dude, what the heck is going on? But I talked to one person, and they're like, oh no, we're with the bank. The landlord just, sent us over here to take pictures, for land value or whatever. And I'm like, damn, something doesn't make sense, but whatever, And then, dude, like, it wasn't but a few days later on a Tuesday, 4:30 in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, I hear, come out with your hands up, come out with your hands up. And dude, I jump out of bed, I run in my cousin's room, and I'm like, dude, I think we're getting raided. By the time I make it back to my room, there's, masked up men with machine guns. Get on the floor, get on the front. Now, I got a pit bull dog, right? I got a pit bull. And this dog's like, "Rrr." And I'm like, I'm jumping on my dog. Do not shoot me. Do not shoot me. And I jump on the dog and I hold him. Get on the ground. Get on the ground. So there, I'm like, hey, I got it. I can't let go of my dog. He's gonna jump on you. So they let me go and put the dog in the cage. And man, long story short, I guess I should say short story longer. We end up going to jail. And they put us in solitary confinement, which is like, there's the only person that you're ever going to be able to talk to is your lawyer. There's no showers. There's no brushing your teeth. There's an investigation going on at this point. And they need to figure some things out. And so the only person I'm allowed to talk to is a lawyer that came and visit me once a day. And, but in this time, man, like, I had to start to think about like life, man. I started thinking about, I have other family members in prison, going to prison. Most of my family's been in prison, and I'm about to sit here and I'm thinking to myself, wow, I'm about to go to prison. But it's something that you prepare your mind for, right? But in this, it's kind of like, yeah, but I don't really think you're going to go to prison, dude. I think, it's going to suck probably for the next, few years for you, but you're probably not going to go to prison. And then you start thinking about after that, okay, if I don't go to prison, then like, what does my life look like? Like, what am I going to do? And that's really where it started for me right then and there of, man, what does my life look like? Most of my family's in prison, been in prison, going to prison. I don't want to spend most of my life in prison. I don't want to spend most of my life a drug addict. I don't want to spend most of my life a drug dealer. I don't want to spend and I started going through this list of what I don't want to be. And while I'm going through this list of things I don't want to be, all I could think about is, yeah, but what are my other options? What else is there? And that lingered in my brain probably for the next few weeks, of just the things that I didn't want to be, but I just really didn't see any other way out of it. I didn't see like a clear picture of anything I could do, And so one of the things I decided to do was I was just like, you know what? I'm going to be a hard worker. I'm a worker. So and I was a welder at that time because I was just welding for fun. And, but I was like, you know what? I'm going to weld for sure. I'm going to be a welder and I'm going to take this serious and I'm going to get a job. And so after we get out of jail and, we get evicted, by the way, because, dude, the SWAT team, they did not show this house any mercy. Like, they kicked the door in. Like, long story short, dude, the landlord, he was not feeling it afterwards. He was like, bro, like, my house is ruined, Like, the house is done. There's holes in the walls. There's no front door. There's windows broken. He's like, there's no way you can stay there. So we ended up getting evicted out of that house, and I'm on what you call pretrial probation, and pretrial probation is like you cannot screw up while you're on probation. If you screw up, dude, you're going to prison. Like at this particular time, anything that you do is not even going to be used against you. Like there's no like you're going to prison. All right. So they made it very clear. So I did. I stopped drinking. I stopped smoking. I was like, dude, there's no way I'm going to prison for extracurricular activities. If I'm going to prison, it's going to be because it's going to be worth it, So I quit drinking. I quit smoking. But I was still going out to the clubs with my friends. And, man, I'm going out one night, and I see a friend that used to be a part of some extracurricular activities too, and I'm not going to say what those activities were, but man, we used to hang out a lot. We used to get advice from each other. And I remember seeing him. He pulls up at the house because we're all going to go out that night, and he pulls up in an Escalade. And I'm like, dang, dude, an Escalade? And I was like, I thought you were clean and all that. I didn't think you were in the extracurricular activities anymore. And he was like, nah, bro, I'm doing something completely different. And I'm not going to get too far in the details of it, but it was a network marketing company. And his mom and his stepdad got him into this network marketing company. And his stepdad at this particular time was like the number 5 income earner of the company. And his stepdad, the way I knew of his stepdad was, well, his stepdad was a coke addict. And I remember telling my, family about this guy because he was from the same city that my family is from. They're like, oh, yeah, I know that guy. Yeah, he's a coke addict. And, man, he really hit home with me because I looked at him kind of like the way I look at myself, like, man, he's got every excuse in the world to be a failure. And the only difference between me and him is that he's not using his excuses, but yet I am. And I remember I joined this network marketing company, and it was probably the best thing I ever did. And I'm not going to sell anybody on any network marketing. So, by the way, I'm not. So people are like, hold on now. Is he going to sell me on something? No, I'm not. But it was one of the best things I ever did. It's where I learned pretty much all the stuff that I learned, that I teach on marketing today. I learned there. On sales today, I learned there. And one of the things that he taught me, and I want you guys to listen to this because this is where it gets good, is where the name comes in. But I really got drawn to this dude because I was just like, man, he would always say stuff like, if I can do it, you can do it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm no better. The only thing separating me and you is time. And I just took action. You need to take action. And that would be his number one thing. But there would be a time where he set us in. And this is where I think life really not this time, but what he said, it took a while for me to understand it, but this is where really, I think, life changed for me, and I didn't even know it until later on down the road. We were doing a group class, and again, we're in network marketing. Part of network marketing they teach you is, goal setting and having a goal and reaching those goals. And so he comes out and he starts teaching this building your dream life. And he said, I want you guys to sit down and build your dream life. And this is where, I don't agree with a lot of new age stuff. I don't believe in a lot of this think positive stuff and positive things will happen. I believe in massive action. I believe that you have to take massive action and do right and make the right choices, and then the right things happen. I do believe in positive thinking, but I don't believe that's the only recipe for it. But this was a little bit different than most of the stuff that I watched or that I was listening to, because he said stuff differently. He said, I want you to build your dream life out and take a piece of paper out. And he started asking questions. It was a bunch of them. But some of them that stick out to me even today was like, what's your dream house, right? And then he would say, what's your dream car? And what's your dream girl? And I remember answering all those questions. What's your dream house? It's a nice house. It's big. What's your dream car? Oh, it's going to be nice. What's your dream girl? Wow, she's cute, And then him coming by and kind of reading people's and like, no. Like, not, it's a big house. Like, what are the details? Like, what's the square footage of this house? Like, how many rooms does it have? What's the color carpets? Stuff like that. You know what I mean? He's like, what's the countertops made of? 1 story, 2 story. I want you to get detailed. What's your dream house look like? And and this made you get really creative. Like, oh, okay. Like, what's your dream car? Like a hot rod. Like, no. I mean, what kind of engine does it have in it? Is it rusted all out? Is it got a fresh paint job? What does it look like? What kind of tires is on it? Girl, pretty. No. What color are her eyes? What's her characteristics? Is she full of drama? Is she going to key up your car? Is she going to cause you all this chaos? And no, who is she? Is she full of love? Like, who is your dream girl? And he's got us writing all this stuff out. And then he asked this question: could Chris Martinez attract that? Could Chris Martinez attract that big house? That car? Could he attract that girl? And my first response was, I don't say it, hell no. I'm not a rich kid. You got to be a rich kid to have a house like that. Like, I could probably have a car like that later on in life. And as far as that girl goes, I could probably get one that looks like that. But I mean, all those characteristics, absolutely not. And then he says, well, then who do you have to become to have all that stuff? And it blew me away, because it was kind of like, here we go, this mumbo jumbo. Like, I have to change me. I'm not trying to change. And this is where I kind of like separated. This is kind of almost where I separated from him. I'm going to share with you where I finally separated from him. And that was at another time where he didn't hear from me for a while. And his whole thing is like, I have to make time for those who make time for me. Time is the number one asset that I can never replace. So his thing is like, I'll work with those people that I see are working towards something. But if you're not working towards something, then I won't work with you, And I stopped working towards stuff, I had every excuse in the world. Like, man, I'm fighting a felony drug charge, and my mom's sick, and I got all these things, right? And I remember talking with him one day, and I just said this. I said, you know what, man? Because he's like, hey, dude, what's going on? And I just like, I don't have time. And I was just like, I'm fighting this felony drug charge. My mom is sick. My girlfriend's cheating on me. And I said this. I go, life just sucks. And he listens to me, right? He listens to me unload. And he goes, life doesn't suck, Chris. You suck. But the good part about that is if you can change a few things about your habits, you can change your life. And I didn't want to hear that. Matter of fact, I got so offended in my head, I literally was like, F you, dude. Like, I can't believe you just said that. I'm looking for somebody to say, man, I'm so sorry, dude, that you're going through this. Yeah, your girlfriend sucks and your situation sucks and everything about it sucks, man. Like, if there's anything I can do to help you, man, you just let me know. I'll do whatever I can, right? That's what I was looking for. But instead, I got somebody that said, no, dude, life doesn't suck. You suck. But the good news about it is you can change that. And then he said something along the lines of this. He said, what I'm hearing from you is 90% of the problems that you're going through, you're putting yourself through. So think about this for a second. If you can change that, if you can stop putting yourself through all these problems, 90% of your problems would be the 10% of the problems that you can't control right now. And then you have a whole nother set of problems of all my problems are problems that I can't control. But how much better that would be than having two different problems that you can control and problems you can't control. And I left that conversation mad. And it wasn't later on until life where I was in another situation where I looked at it and I said, I think that guy was right. It's not everyone around me that sucks. It's me that sucks. And I got to do something about it. So that's where this podcast comes from, man. It's not life that sucks, right? It's you that sucks. And when I started my business, right? Some of you may or may not know this, but we have a pretty good business, man. This business, I live in a nice house. I was able to build this studio from my business, and I didn't always have that. Matter of fact, sometimes I would even go as far as to say business sucks. The economy sucks. My employees suck. And it's like, no, man, life doesn't suck. You suck. Your business doesn't suck. You suck. But if you can change that, you can change a lot of stuff, right? And that's the whole purpose of this podcast. And that's why I chose that name, You Suck. Because if we can really take responsibility and action and say, hey, man, it's not my wife's fault. It's not, it's not my mom's fault anymore. I'm a grown man. At some point, it stops becoming her fault and becomes my fault. Now, maybe when I was 8 years old, I can say it's my mom's fault. 16, I can start to say, 18 years old, when you move out, it's kind of say, hey, man, it's time to say, at some point, you have to get rid of all of your excuses. Okay? And this is what you have to do. And this doesn't matter if it's in business, it's in life, if it's in your health. This is what I've done. I've written down all my excuses. Okay? If you want, for instance, starting my business, I'm fearful, right? I don't know if I'm going to make money. I had all these excuses, right? Write them down. And then you go to war on those excuses. You find every excuse you can come up with and you tackle it. You say, man, how can I overcome that excuse? If you're starting a business, well, my fear is, I don't want to start one because, man, what if I don't make enough money? Well, then you tackle that. Well, how much money do you need to make every week for you to feel comfortable in your business? Well, then how much money does your business need to make? And you go to war on that. Well, how do I produce that? I want to lose weight. Wow, jeez, I love tacos. That's going to be my biggest excuse. Write that down. How do I go to war on that? Well, dude, I got to stay away from all the taco places that I love. I may have to stop going to church on Sundays. I'm just kidding, because we go eat tacos after church sometimes. I'm just kidding. I'm just saying, what are those excuses, though, right? Write them down. That's the whole point of this podcast, is I want people to take responsibility for them. I want them to say, hey, man, if Chris Martinez can change his life, still drink beer doing it and have fun doing it, so can I. And really, man, that's the whole idea of this You Suck podcast, because you suck, but the good news about it is you can change it. So, man, here's what we're going to do. Once a week, we're going to do these podcasts. I'm going to release one. This one here I'm doing by myself. I wanted to work out any kinks, so if the sound sucks, I'm sorry. I got a soundboard here, and I'm trying to figure all this stuff out. Once a month, I'm going to release one business podcast, and it's going to be called You Suck, Not Business. And it's going to be a part of this You Suck podcast. So it's not going to be on another channel. I'm not making a whole separate thing for it. I'm passionate about business. And one of the things I want to do in this is we want to help felons. We want to help people that may have grew up in the same kind of a background that I grew up in, who may feel hopeless and worthless. And I want to help you. Like I feel like we have the entrepreneurial gift. And so we're going to be making resources and stuff like that free of charge, and helping people become entrepreneurs. And so we want to make a podcast once a month that just says, and all these podcasts that I plan on doing, guys, this is the only one I plan doing solo. My next one, I'm going to have my wife on. My wife's going to expose me a lot. We're going to be real. We're going to be raw. We're going to be authentic. And, we're going to drink some beer. I'm going to have some whiskey on. Somebody may come on and want to smoke a cigar. Shoot, come on, man. Come on. Hey, if you want to be on the podcast, feel free to reach out to me. I don't have the email address memorized quite yet, but I'll put it in the link descriptions. And reach out. And here's the deal. Here's who we're looking for. People that may have every excuse in the world to be a failure, but have overcame those excuses. Whether we're not looking for you to have a perfect life. I don't have a perfect life, man. I am so jacked up. That's why I'm bringing my wife on the next one. I want you to hear it from her. I want you to hear, the anxiety, the depression that I've had to fight, the battles that I fight on a daily basis. And this podcast is really for me, so I can be real and authentic. I can drink a beer. I can say what I want to say. I can step out of a ministry, aspect, so to speak. But I'm going to use this for ministry too, by the way. But I really want to use this to be real, authentic, unscripted, and just a place to feel comfortable, for a place for me to feel safe and say, hey man, let's drink a beer. Let's drink some scotch. I don't think I like scotch actually, but let's drink some whiskey, and let's talk about life, man. Let's dig deep and talk about how we can fix some things in life. So that's a little bit about me, a little bit about this podcast. Why the name? Hey man, because that stuck with me when that dude told me, hey man, life doesn't suck, you suck. Dude, I remember that today. And I say it to people all the time. I hear their story and I'm like, hey man, I want to tell you something. And I'm pretty sure somebody probably told him that. That was the cool part about it, is I'm sure someone told him, hey dude, life doesn't suck, you suck, but you can change that. And that's what we've been doing, guys. We've been changing, man. We've been changing our lives. And it's been one of the hardest things that I've ever done. I don't have it all figured out, man. I don't. Like, I blow it every day. I blow it as a husband. I blow it as a father. But man, at the end of the day, I say, what did I fail at? And how do I fix it? How do I become better tomorrow? And that's what I'm hoping that this podcast does, is it encourages you and it inspires you. It lets you know that you can become better, and that if someone like Chris Martinez can do it, man, by all means, you can do it too. Hey, thank you so much, guys, for listening to this podcast. This is part 2 of the episode 0. You Suck podcast. Thank you so much. Please subscribe to the channel. Hit the little bell so that way you can see the notifications whenever we put a new video out. Subscribe to the podcast. Man, we're going to be making these once a week. And I'm excited. I'm excited for doing this. Man, this is long overrated. We're coming out with a book. We're going to be writing a book. If you want to be on the podcast, again, reach out. If you want to talk about a certain subject, if you want us to hit on a certain subject, man, by all means, reach out to us, and we will find somebody that sucks in that area but has overcame, and we'll get them on the podcast so we can talk about it. Got a lot of episodes in store for you, man. We've already recorded a few of them. So that way that there's some in the lineup ready to come out. Part 1's already out. You should have already watched that one. This one's part 2. And then we have episode 1 coming out here pretty soon. So, guys, thank you so much again for watching. Again, life doesn't suck. You suck. But the good part about that is that you can change it by simply changing yourself. So, see you on episode 1. Cheers. Have a great one. And we'll see you next time.